everyone, and welcome back to the Gaelic Lives podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by former Downstar and Queen's University Belfast manager Conor Deegan. Conor, you're only up to telling me that you've got St Mary's in the Sigerson draw, so a nice wee Belfast rivalry there for the first round.
The boys will refer to it as the Bell Classico. That'll be the reference now for the next few weeks. Yeah, there was a few big gasps when it came out and the draw came out. So, but look, it's two teams that know each other well. We have actually genuinely great regard for each other. So, it's a good draw for both teams. The fact we're not traveling away to Dublin or whatever, it's a positive as well. So, yeah, both teams, I'd say both relatively happy.
And obviously, the first round of the league or of the Sigerson, Conor, you're not going to get an easy draw anyway. So probably one that's in Belfast is as good as you would have hoped for.
It is. So yeah, yeah. I was talking to Gavin just prior to it, and then our own Queen's own Gavin, he said, you know what, we'll end up getting Mary's. Honest to God, the draw came out Mary's. So yeah, what can you do? What can you do?
It's definitely an interesting one, Conor. And obviously, you're probably in the same boat. I had one of the questions I was going to ask you is obviously with Jordanstown, Ulster University currently being the champions. Is it nearly like an Armagh winning All Ireland that other counties are starting to go, well, if Armagh can do it, we can do it. Do Queens and St Mary's sort of have that feeling that if Ulster can do it, why can we not do it?
Well, yeah, I think that when you look at it, I mean, in recent times, ourselves against Jordanstown, Mary's against Jordanstown. When it comes to championship, there's never that much in it. So, if they're able to get it going and get a bit of a run going, I mean, there's no doubt that we can do the same, and Mary's will view it the exact same way. So, yeah, why not? It's there. I mean, that's counties have in the past used that as a springboard for themselves. But I think we would have enough belief to say that if we can turn up and play as well as we can play, that we're going to we'll make it difficult for most teams, I would think.
And what does the Sigerson mean? Conor, I know this is you've been involved with Queens for a good few years now, and it's probably one of the highlights of the GA calendar, particularly played in January. There's not that much else going
No.
on, so it does get a good bit of attention. But what does it mean?
On a personal level, it's without doubt the most enjoyable experience from a managerial point of view. It's fantastic. Um, you know, from a very basic level of facilities alone, brilliant. You have your pitch, there's never an issue with equipment or any of that stuff. And you tick that box straight off the bat, and you just default to Gav Duffy and it's dealt with, and that's fantastic. You're also dealing with a very vibrant club. I mean, I think on my WhatsApp for the teams, I think I have 166 players for three teams. Um, like that's very, very, very strong. So, there's always training to be done. There's always people to be catered for, whether it be Sigers and Inters, thirds, it doesn't matter, and they're all given their own preference, their deference. They have their own management. It's well run. It's very well organized. Um, so from that point of view, in my perspective, I love it. I have to say, I just love the enthusiasm, the energy that comes off the young lads. Um, it'd be lovely just to kick on and really go deep in the competition. Um, but from a player's point of view, you hear the stories, you hear about everybody. I have a cousin who won a Sigerson with Queens way back, and the stories, they're still their great friends. I think that's really what it comes down to. I mean, you can play on county sides and not have pals or great chums or friends or whatever you want to, you'll play with them, you've suffered with them, there's a bond built up, but it's not the same thing. Whereas with these guys, they develop a true friendship. Um, and the more you suffer together, that friendship will potentially grow as well. So um, I think it's a unique competition. You're bringing so many disparate players from different counties all together. I think we have eight different counties represented. Only one we don't have, I think, is Cavan. I think. I don't think I'm wrong, but there's only one that I can think of. Um, so you're bringing all them different cultures and ideas about how to play football and the coaches that they've come from, and trying to almost remove all of that to say, look, this is how we want you to try to play with a bit more freedom, maybe with a bit more bravery, and not worry about making mistakes. So it's a very different way of thinking. Um, but they seem to. It would be a travesty if it stopped or it lost its importance. It would be an absolute tragedy. Um, I think it has its merits, very, very much so. And you play football at a hell of a level. There's not, there's obviously a very heavy sprinkling of inter-county footballers all the way through it. So the standards are good. The standards are very good, actually. So yeah, it's. I would believe it's a fairly important competition.
And Conor had mentioned usually in January there's not that much going on. Obviously, Sigerson does clash with pre-season competitions the odd time and into the National League as well. Obviously, the pre-season competitions they're not going to be there next year. The league doesn't start. I think it's the 25th of January. So does that ease things a wee bit? Obviously, no, you're shaking your head straight away. Teams are going to be playing challenge games and that, but does it help in terms of access to county men or load on players' bodies, or does it help at
Well,
all?
no, the load we're always very cognizant of. We ensure that we certainly don't flog them. I think the problem, and look, we understand. You can understand being an inter-county manager. I mean, I think the fact of no competitions in some ways they've spread their net even wider, and they're dragging more players into their development panel, if you want to call it that. So you're maybe losing a few more players than you normally would have. Um, because they're just trawling their net as wide as they can and see, and then they have numbers that they can play these internal matches, which they need to do to get used to these new rules. So in some ways, we've maybe been hurt more this year than we have in the past, which is, it's unusual maybe, and maybe it's just that a little blip on the road that next year wouldn't happen. Um, but yeah, this year it's hurt a wee bit, to be very honest. But the good sign of that is that there's guys being brought onto county squads and county panels, so they're obviously at a good level. So when we get them back, you would like to think they're coming back, hopefully fit and healthy and whatever else. But they're good players coming back. So our only downside is we maybe don't see them until maybe the week before. So it does make it a wee bit more difficult. But no, we'll keep that we keep on going because there's other boys need to be looked after and catered for and trained. So we'll deal with it as and when it comes round. So
And the inter-county game is going to change next year. Conor GA is changing an awful lot apart from the Sigerson. You're playing via the old rules. So I suppose tell us a bit about that in terms of coaching. Are you looking forward to the new rules? Obviously, you won't be using them in the Sigerson, but what do you make of the new rules are coming into GA next year?
I think the new rules, we would have done a few internals because we weren't sure about if the rules were going to come in for Sigerson. So we sort of try to get I wouldn't say ahead of the curve, but we're just trying to get a feel for them. And oh my God, it's a seismic shift. Um, Personally speaking, I think it's an awful lot of rules to bring into one time. That said, the fact that you had to start thinking along those lines told you that the product was broken, our game wasn't where it needed to be. The biggest change is going to be the three up front, without a shadow of a doubt. It's quite incredible to witness. Um, it's going to be very difficult to referee. I think it's going to be very tough. I think at county level, with your umpires and your linesmen, you've obviously a much better opportunity and chance. But in a year's time when this goes to clubs, it's going to be very, very, very tough. The three staying up, again, the difficulty we found was that players it's so ingrained in them to track back that they instinctively were tracking back. So you weren't keeping the third man up. The third man was always coming back, or maybe even two were coming back over the halfway line. You're sitting going, well, that's a free automatically. And trying to stop them coming over the line, it's difficult. Now, the question is, if I'm chasing somebody and you have the ball, so I'm chasing you, Sean, you have the ball, you go over the halfway line, I'm meant to stop. It's very hard to do. Unless somebody's in the far side and they can switch across really, very, and you've got the fourth body in, and that guy can come out, and that's fine. That's still three up, but it's very, very choreographed. You need to be really in tune. You need to really understand and buy into it and know what's happening. So you're mentally going to be, I would say, switched on all the time. Physically, the amount of effort that's going to be required to chase. If you're coming out of halfback and you hit a pass up the pitch, you might have to take off a 40, 50 meter run. Well, I think that's tiring. And if you're doing that X number of times a game, like you're going to fatigue. There's no two ways about that. So it's going to put a big emphasis on kicking ability. It's going to put a huge emphasis on physical ability to run. The good thing about it is I think it'll make the better player will now, coming out of it, anybody can kick a ball well. It looks great when it's done well. It absolutely, like it is a real throwback. Boys coming out, pinging a pass 50 meters and taking off. Like it's nice to watch. But Jesus, don't ask them to go back the other way. And the ball breaks down him, traps him. It's tough. And you don't have the same numbers. There's more space up front. So yeah, it's going to change the game dramatically, I think, dramatically. And then I think it'll find its balance. I think it'll find a normal place for itself when things will just ease up a wee bit. But like there's such a focus on it at the moment.
Is
Um,
there going to have to be an easing in period, do you think, Connor? Like, is it like the first three National League games is maybe too early to judge it? We're going to have to see
oh,
them over a long period.
yeah, when you seen it up close, we watched it with the Interpros, there was a lot of mistakes made, and that it's just we have to. There's going to be teething problems with it. I mean, referees are going to make mistakes, and there's no point giving out because not everybody's clued into it. And you will eventually; it'll become seamless. But it is going to ask serious questions of everybody, and it's yeah. I think we just need to sit back and give it a chance. There's no point in trying to make these changes and then saying, you know, 2 games in, oh, it's rubbish or it's this, that, and the other. Give it a chance. It needs a real run. And I think what'll happen is management coaches, whatever, they'll start evolving their thoughts around it as well. And it'll probably make the whole thing a little bit more seamless and a little bit easier as um but again, going back to the point, Sean, the fact we had to make changes to it, I think that tells you everything. It's the fact we had to make them means that there was something wrong. So,
Connor,
let's give it a chance.
you said something about a throwback there. It's obviously 30 years since Down last won the All Ireland.
People keep telling me that,
As
Sean,
you
today,
know,
and it's I have Michelle here, and she's laughing because she's looking at all these. That's all I'm hearing. Yes, it's 30 bloody years, Sean.
well, I'll not drag you back there too much, Connor. No, the point I was going to make is obviously Down are back in the Sam Maguire for next year, having won
Yeah.
the Talton Cup. Where do you see Down football at the minute? Obviously, Kilcoo just lost out in the final bit of point there last Sunday. Do you see Down there? They seem to be going the right direction. Is that a fair enough assessment?
I think you would have to be honest and say yes, it is definitely the promotion. Winning a trophy last year in Croke Park was good. It was important. I know it was 10, 11, or 12 finals we've lost in that time frame. So to just put a bit of silverware, we haven't won enough to be dismissive of it. It's something. The most important thing was it took us into the All Ireland series and it took us back to Division Two. Um, Players will improve, playing at better levels against better players, stronger teams, so that they all have to take ownership here, not just you can throw it at management all day, but players need to step up and understand that you're coming up against good sides, big sides, athletic sides, and we have to match that. And players must do this as much as anybody else. Yes, like there's no doubt management, Connor, they'll give them all the ammunition that they need, but they have to take that onto the field to play and make it happen. So I think it's critically important that they do. And if they stay, I genuinely believe, Sean, if they stay in Division Two, it would be a massive step forward. Um, because we need a year or two or three playing against better teams, and so that's going to be a tough one. But if we do that, and then you have the championship then to kick in after that. And Armagh beat them by a point last year. Armagh won All Ireland. I don't think if Down had to beat Armagh by a point, I don't think Down would have won All Ireland last year. But it does also show you that anything is actually possible, and take a wee bit of belief and comfort from that. And have a decent league campaign and kick forward into championship, and then you see where it goes, and then go again for the following year. But it's time. It's time we were not. There's no point in looking at big fat bald men like me looking at us as the last guys that actually won something in Grove Park. It's long overdue, long overdue. We have enough good players to do it. On a genuine, but I've said that for a while. I know we always produce good footballers, but um, maybe the players need to start understanding that maybe they are good enough.
Conor, that's brilliant. Good man. Thanks very much for coming on, and
Not at
best of
all,
luck
Sean. Thanks
next
very
year as
much.
well.
Cheers, kid. Thank you very much indeed.